So welcome everybody. Firstly, I'd like to welcome you to Manchester Pride's conference, Beyond the Rainbow. My name is Reeta Loi. I'm a musician and writer, and I'm also CEO and founder of an organisation called Gaysians. And it's my great pleasure to welcome somebody that really needs no introduction, other than perhaps King of the Gaysians, although I would prefer to be the king, so perhaps you'll be my queen. The beautiful Tan France. Welcome.
Hello, how are you? I would love to be the queen.
Would you be my
I don't want to take a king title. I'll take a queen title.
Okay, great, good. That's what I was hoping. That's what I was hoping.
Yes.
Thank you. Everyone was so pleased. Because, you know, the Gaysians are a massive fan, obviously. Everybody adores you. And if anyone's read your book and seen any of your work, then people know why. And I guess today I really just wanted to focus on sort of where we are right now in time and how that's been for you, and also sort of lead into queer age and joy and explore that together.
Yes,
if that sounds all right for you. So firstly, in terms of this last year, which has been quite a year, let's face it, what's changed for you? You know, a lot of people have had a shift in mindset. Has that happened for you, and in what way?
Oh, for sure. You know, up until a year ago, I was running the rat race. Like it was so intense. I had businesses for many years, and then I went straight from business to entertainment, and the entertainment industry. This might not be as the case in the UK, but in the US, because it's so vast, there's always something going on. There's always work to be done. And so you work so incredibly hard. And so this last year has reminded me that I've got a life outside of entertainment. I've got a life outside of entertaining people that I really enjoy. And so it's reminded me that going forward, I'm not going to work anywhere near as much as I did the last few years. And it's not because I don't love my work. I love my work so much, but I also love a personal life. Like I love doing things that I want to do with my husband and my friends.
That's brilliant. And I think there has been a sort of shift in pace, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, for most people, there's been a shift in pace, and there's been that sort of looking inward. And, you know, for you, your love story is just so compelling and so beautiful. So I'm really happy you've got to share more time with your husband. And yeah, I know what you mean about sort of being the entertainer and, you know, sort of switching that off. Like, what else do you do? Like, I want to know how you unwind. You know, what do you do to switch off?
So easy. So I like to believe, and I've said this for so long to my family, I am the perfect bohu. So anyone white who is watching, that means I'm the perfect daughter-in-law. And by that I mean my mom always wanted daughter-in-laws who could cook as well as she could. And I cook better than my mom, like she knows it. And so most of my free time at home this last year has been cooking and baking and filling my house with Bollywood music. Much to, at first, my husband's dismay, now he's really getting into it. So yeah, that's how I would unwind. I make curry and I listen to old, like classic Bollywood. It's my favorite thing to do.
To be fair, that's probably my favourite thing to do as well. I absolutely love it. So I'm with you there. 100%.
What's your go-to dish?
You know what? I actually, okay, so my signature dish is keema, right? But increasingly, as
plain keema?
Huh?
Plain keema? Nothing keema in it?
Just with peas.
I love it with peas. Yeah.
But, you know, increasingly as people are shifting away from eating meat, myself included, good old dal, man. Good old dal. You can't go.
I love a dal.
You know what I mean?
I love a dal. You know, when people come over, I still give them dal, even though my mum finds it so embarrassing. She's like, you've done well in life. You can give them meat. I'm like, I like dal. Like, I just want to cook my dal. However, you can make, I don't know if you have the brand Impossible in the UK. Do you know what an Impossible burger is?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay.
So you can get that from the grocery store here. And so I made Impossible keema. Oh, it's wicked.
Okay, I need to try that.
I'm not endorsed by Impossible in any way. It's just, it really is so good.
Because I tried another well-known brand in the UK that's an alternative.
Does it start with Q?
It does start with Q. Rhymes with born. Yeah, that didn't come out so well, actually. So
No.
I'm looking at the Impossible. I've tried Impossible, so yeah, I'm a fan. What's your signature dish?
I'm gonna be an arrogant douche and say I've got a couple. My dal is wicked. I really do believe my dal is wicked. And then chicken and mushroom.
Oh, hang on a minute. Hang on. Chicken and mushroom. That's just mixing things up. That's really controversial.
Yeah, well, I know it's not typically Asian, but I'm very Asian and also very British. And chicken and mushroom, like you get chicken and mushroom soup, like it's quite a classic British thing.
I think this is like northern thing that's coming in the mix.
Yeah, it must be. And so I thought, well, why can't I make an Asian version of that? And it's gorgeous. It really is so good. But it's like a really thick salad, like I make it restaurant style, so it's lovely.
Okay, nice. All right, okay, I need the recipe for that from you.
Oh, easy. I'll get it to you in a heartbeat.
Okay, all right, amazing. So, so there's cooking, there's Bollywood music, there's, switching off from entertaining, spending time with your husband. Yeah. What other ways do you celebrate yourself?
I mean, I'm on a show where we encourage people to celebrate themselves and to show themselves kindness and love. And so for me, this is going to sound lame, but it's true. I know what my physical appearance does for my own joy. And so I get clothes, I alter clothes that make me feel powerful, that make me feel the way I want to feel, the way that I probably wasn't allowed to feel as a kid in a very Asian household. And so that's the thing that I work on when I've got free time. I put clothes on that make me feel really good about myself. So every time I pass a mirror, every time somebody takes a picture on a street, I think, well, go ahead and take that picture. I feel really good about myself today because I made an effort.
I really love that. I really love that you sew, and I really love your relationship with sewing that you talk about in your book as well. And I think there's a lot that really comes through about your gender space as well, and I really love that. I love the exploration of feeling free in our queerness, however that may be, in the umbrella of LGBTQ+. And how you explored that as a child, because for me certainly it was a case of I was riding BMXs and playing football and certainly not conforming to the gender norms of young Indian girls. And so for me, reading about your exploration in the more sort of feminine space, if you like, for me was really reassuring, and also that wasn't really frowned upon either. And now you find yourself in a place where you can fully express that, which is so inspiring.
To a certain extent, I think that people assume because I'm in the position that I'm in, that I get to be whatever I choose to be. However, I still feel a little bit confined in what people expect. And it's not necessarily that I behave the way that people expect me to behave. I just know that there's always judgment from either end, whichever way I decide to go that day, as far as displaying my masculinity or femininity.
Because I think this is it's an ongoing journey and process of exploration, isn't it? And I think, when we're intersectional, I think there is a sort of, we identify as queer. I always think of queer as really meaning curiosity. Right? There's a constant curiosity and playfulness. That actually it doesn't have anything to do with sexuality or gender. It's just a term that is, sort of questioning and being curious about what the norm is.
Not feeling the need to define oneself.
Yeah, and I think, when we're looking at, when we look at you and your work and the way that you are, and you bring so much joy to us and you inspire so many people. Were you always like this? Did you always feel like this? Because I know that you've talked about not really feeling any sort of shame about your sexuality or anything like that, but which is beautiful and inspiring in itself. But did you always feel this joyful?
I can't describe it because some people find it insufferable that I'm always in a really peppy mood. I wake up first thing in the morning and I'll turn to my husband, this is our bed, and I'll turn to him, morning. I really am just, I love that I get to live. Like it makes me really happy. And so I've always been joyful. I asked my mom when I was writing my book, what was I like as a kid? I don't remember a lot of my personality. Did I ever go through that, I don't know if I can say crappy, I'm going to say crappy. That crappy teenage phase where I was a little brat to you. You know, most teenage kids go through that with their parents. And she said, of all my kids, I'm the youngest, said you were just always happy. And no matter what was going on, you would find a way to spin it to something that was positive. And we fell on hard times a lot. Our family was in a small town and we suffered a lot of racism. We weren't wealthy, but I always found a way to put a positive spin on it, even though that was probably unwise. And that's how it is now. I find everything, I find the joy in as much as possible. I surround myself with people who are positive. If somebody's in my life who's negative, I make it clear that I don't have a space in my life for that. And if that you continue, unfortunately, you won't be in my life much longer. And that doesn't mean that people can't tell me what they're going through. I just don't entertain too much negativity or skepticism. It's just not for me.
I think that's such a great way of not just viewing life in terms of your attitude, but also in terms of the energy that we're allowing in. And I think particularly with this time, you know, we're sort of, a lot of relationships are shifting. A lot of our relationships with our loved ones or, you know, friends we've had for a really long time, as we're all going through our individual growth at different rates, in different ways, relationships are really changing. And I think setting those boundaries really quite clearly, or communicating that, I don't know, but for Asians, I think it's quite hard. I think, I think setting boundaries for a lot of us is quite challenging.
Yeah, it is. But it's something, I was always very westernized. And I don't know, actually I do know how, it was TV. My siblings are a lot more traditional than I am. I was very, very westernized, and boundaries are something I talk about a lot. If ever you've heard, if any of you who are watching, if you've ever heard Jonathan Van Ness give an interview, he will, whenever they ask about me, he says, the one thing I hate about Tan is that he loves a boundary more than anyone. He will tell me that Jonathan knows, after a certain hour, you do not knock on my door. If you've been at my house longer than 3 hours, I will kick you out. When it's time to go to bed, I will set that boundary. So I know the ways to make myself happy, and that is by setting many, many, many boundaries. However, that then means that I can be incredibly joyful because everyone knows what I'm willing to put up with. They know what's okay, they know what's not okay, and therefore I get to be very, very chirpy. If you were to ever interview any of my castmates, they will tell you that, yes, I'm the most boundary person, but I am the peppiest person every day you'll ever meet.
Do you think there's a relationship between those two things?
Yes.
Because
yes.
I'm interested in this because it feels as though what you're saying is by establishing these boundaries, and when you're talking about that, are you saying that you know, obviously that requires some communication with the people around you, right? Which can be quite difficult.
Yeah.
Is it like a muscle? So the more you do it, the more effective you come at it.
I think you get used to it the more you do it. I've been very overly communicative since I was young about what I would like to happen to make the situation the best it can be. And I want to make it clear, it's not me being a diva, truly isn't. I'm never being unreasonable. I just say, I like my 8 hours sleep. So when it hits a certain point in time, we would have had a lovely evening, but I need you to go now because I need to go to bed. Or on set, yes, I can do this, this, and this, but I can't do this because it's gonna make me miserable for the rest of the day, and I want to keep my positive attitude for the rest of the shoot. And so I think that finding a way when you're young to learn how to communicate what is going to work for you to make you happy isn't a bad thing. And that doesn't mean taking away somebody else's joy to make yourself happy. I'm not talking about being selfish. I'm talking about finding a compromise that keeps everybody in place.
Because essentially by sharing and communicating our boundaries, we're more able to be free, express joyfully. Yeah. And
you're setting the expectation of what your relationship is and how it should continue to go forward. If you don't ever tell me, if you and I were close and I never told you that this thing isn't conducive to our joyful relationship, we would go on years and years, me being miserable and you never realizing that it was a problem for me, and I could have real disdain for you or resentment. In my opinion, it makes a much healthier relationship to just say, this is what's working for us, this is what's not working. Let's work on those things that aren't working.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. I think that's great advice. And I'm interested in like where do you go for guidance and support? Where did you go when you were younger, and where do you go now? I go to my family a lot. My sister I'm very close with. I'm close with all my siblings. I speak to them every week. I haven't lived in America I haven't lived in England for 13, almost 14 years. America has been my primary residence, which is why I speak the way I do, and people make fun of the fact that my sentences go up at the end. I've lived here half of my life. Of course it's going to happen. But it doesn't mean I lost touch with my family. I speak to them constantly. And my sister I speak to every few days, and people are baffled by the fact that we can have a 3-hour conversation even though I just spoke to her 2 days ago. And so I will run everything by her, even though we are so different. She's incredibly religious, she's incredibly traditional, cultural, but I know that she always has sound advice and will think of the components to the problem that I haven't thought of. And so her, my husband, and one of my closest friends from back in the UK, those 3 people are the people I usually go to for, I many friends, and I'm so grateful for that, but there's certain people I go to for the nitty gritty in my life, who I know will understand where I came from and how I should respond to something based on my culture, my religion, my job, everything I represent. It's so important, isn't it, to have that. Someone said to me once, actually at Bombay Pride a few years ago, I met this amazing person from New York who was part of the parade, and we got chatting, and we were talking about friendships and connections, and you know, you gain people, you lose people on this journey, and she was saying, all you need is your circle of 5. And I thought that's so powerful. And obviously, you know, there are 5 of you. And I think there's something really powerful about that, having a range of people, because I think, you know, in the coming out journey, in the experience of being intersectional, at various stages in our lives, you know, we come across certain hurdles, and having that close circle or people like your sister that you can go and you can talk to is so crucial.
You know, but to add on to that, it's not just a circle of 5 or a circle of people who you can be completely honest with. It's people who challenge you. It's not, I'm not talking about yes men. I'm like, my few people that I have that I go to are not the people who are going to tell me what I want to hear. They're the people who will tell me the things that I don't want to hear, but I definitely need to.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's
I mean, it's infuriating sometimes. I should make it very infuriating sometimes, but the reason I continue to go back to them, if I wanted somebody to just tell me what I want to hear, I'll go to my agents. There are many people, especially in our world, who will just tell you whatever you want to hear because you're a star, baby, like that kind of crap. I don't need that. I'm not that person. I need someone to tell me, you're making the wrong move here. This is why.
Yeah, that's true actually. When you're surrounded by people that are sort of validating what you're saying, you do need those people that are going to give you the truth.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you what would you say to anybody that hasn't shared their identity or isn't being fully themselves in the world, and perhaps they would like to be?
You know, this question is a tough question. And just to be honest, I get raked over the coals for both of my answers to this, or both sides of an answer to this, because I know that as one of the queens of the Gaysians, I should say, you know, you do you, out and proud, and don't let anyone stand in your way. However, we do not have the luxury of being Caucasian and having representation on TV for so long, or in movies or whatever, media. And so we are normalized. And so therefore, when we come out, actually it's a lot scarier. It's a lot, I mean, and I'm not saying the Caucasian experience is easy, of course it's not. But when you have had some versions of representation of who you are, what you are, that makes it a little easier for your family and friends to comprehend. They understand to a certain extent what you're telling them. To tell an Asian mother or father that you are queer, most of them have no idea what you're saying. My mum literally had never heard the word before. When I told her I was gay, never had heard the word before, and never had heard the concept, so I had to explain it to her. That makes it much more difficult. So what I would say is, don't feel shame in the fact that you haven't come out yet as queer or let people into your life completely. Do it when it feels right for you, and do it for the right reasons, because you want the freedom to be yourself, you want the freedom to express yourself, and you just want to live an honest, happy life. Do it at that point, not because you feel the pressure from me when I post on during Pride Month, come out, it's great out here. Yeah, it is. Doesn't mean it's easy to get to that point. And then I will say, share your story with one person that you know will just love you exactly who you are, for exactly who you are. I started with a white friend who was female when I was 16, and she was so loving and supportive, didn't judge me even for a heartbeat, and made it so clear that everything was going to be okay, that helped the snowball effect of telling more people, and then I told my family. So just find that one person you know you can trust to be honest with. I do find it sometimes frustrating in our community, the queer community, where we'll say, well, no, we're living in 2021, just come out. And if you don't come out, you're not strong or you're not proud. Do not listen to that bullshit. That is not the case. You get to be strong and proud, even if you can't come out to your incredibly religious Asian parents. It takes time.
Absolutely agree 100%. I think there's, we have coming out day every year, and it's kind of, it's much more complex for intersectional people. Certainly, I think for Asians, when I came out to my mum, she didn't stop crying for days. And so I think there's a certain amount of patience that's required for yourself and for the people that you're sharing it with.
Yeah.
And I think it certainly takes time. And I think with Asians, not always, I think often with Asians, our exploration of our sexuality across the board, even if you're straight, happens a bit later, because we do with certain confines around being able to date and stuff, right? So that exploration happens a bit later. So we often end up coming out later as well. But I totally agree. Having just even one person that you can tell and you can share that with and feel safe is the start, isn't it?
And also decide what you want your relationship with your family to be. For example, a lot of people in my life had said for many years, just cut your family off, like then they don't understand. However, these people who were saying that didn't understand that my family is very religious. They're a strict Muslim family. I love them implicitly, I really do, and I was willing to wait it out and allow them to take their time, ask questions. You do not get to disrespect me, but you can ask the questions. I get that you're curious. You do not understand this. I've had a lifetime to process this. You may have only just found out. And so I afforded them the grace to be able to take their time with it. And so with some of my family members, it took 10 years, 15 years to get to the point where they understood who I am, and now that they won't make a silly comment or an ill-advised comment. They know that that's hurtful. And so I guess you do have to decide what you want from your relationship with your family. And our communities are so tight-knit, and they're always concerned with what's the neighbor going to say, what's Mr. Han going to say down the street. We have to understand that our situation is a little different from many Caucasians in the UK. Absolutely,
and it's even further amplified by the fact that there's very little support as parents. I'm pretty sure my parents don't know any other parents of gay kids. I don't know an Asian parents. So there's all of that. I feel like as queer South Asians, we're starting to build community increasingly around the world now, which is so exciting. And we're seeing more people in the magazines, walking down the street, in clubs, all the stuff that we didn't see when we were growing up, right? All of that's available now. So it's massively shifting and changing. But I think there are still so many factors that are very different for us and require some sensitivity. So thank you for that. I completely agree with everything that you're saying. I guess while we're on the subject of queer Asians, I mean, is there anything else that you feel, you know, there's obviously the coming out space, but is there anything else that you feel queer Asians, LGBTQ plus South Asians might want to hear or might benefit from hearing?
Yeah. Yes. Well, you know, the funny thing is, I get so many of them in my DMs, and so I know what so many of them are thinking about me, or about the gay Asian experience or the queer Asian experience. And I find that there are so many homophobic gay men out there, people who hate themselves because of their queerness. And to those people who are watching, who haven't come out yet, but they're curious and they want to hear a conversation between two queer Asians, even if you've just come out and you're still doing the bro thing, do you, that's fine. Don't come for those Asians who are over the bro thing, who went through that 20 years ago and realized that there's no need for that. I get to, if I want to wear a heeled boot, I'll wear a heeled boot. If I want to wear a blouse instead of a suit, I'll wear a blouse instead of a suit. Understand that just because you are on the more feminine side of the spectrum doesn't make you any less worthy of love and affection. Just because you're a bro gay doesn't make you any more appealing to anyone. You get to choose which, do what feels organic to you, but don't feel like you have to be a bro because that makes you less gay. Gay's gay. And every version of it is beautiful. So if you truly are naturally just more masculine, so be it. I will love you for it just the same. But don't feel like you have to hide it just because, well, Asian boys aren't meant to be like that. I don't care what Asian boys are meant to be like. Asian boys, as far as my family were concerned, my community were concerned, weren't meant to be into penis. Some of us are. And there's no shame in that. And you get to be a version of that person the way you want to. Don't feel like you have to continue to play into that masculine stereotype. It's bull.
Absolutely, 100% agree there as well. So that's, I mean, this is based, I was interested in the kind of messages you get coming into your DMs actually, because yes, because I mean, mine are interesting enough, so I can only imagine what yours are like.
I get, no joke, Reeta, I get probably between 500 and 800 a day, roughly. And then around the season launch, I get over 1,000. I don't read them. My assistant reads, she'll choose like 10. There's no possible way outside of quarantine that I could read more than a few a day. I've got a job also. So many are from Asians, and so many of them really are beautiful. I will say that I'm so lucky that I'm on such a positive, uplifting show that the majority of the people who message me are just very grateful, especially Asians and Middle Eastern people who will say we've never seen something like this in our country, because Netflix is global. Queer Eye is available in every country where Netflix is available. And so they're watching this in Pakistan, they're watching it in Bangladesh, they're watching it in Nepal. And I'm very openly Muslim as well as queer, as well as Asian. And so it's so lovely for these kids to say, we didn't realize it was possible to be both. We didn't realize it was possible to live a full and happy life with family that love and respect you, even though they're also Muslim. And so those kind of messages are wonderful, but every now and then we get the ones that from people who just haven't processed it enough and still hate themselves, and I hope that they get, and I'm not angry at them, I don't hate them, I just think I hope you get to a place where you learn to love yourself as the queer person you are.
Exactly, because imagine if we could all just be exactly the people that we are, without constraint, without feeling as though we had to in any way censor ourselves or change ourselves for the acceptance of other people. And so often we have to, because we have to think about safety, we have to think about all kinds of factors that are very real. But I think the power of Queer Eye being taken by Netflix around the world, as you say, beamed into homes and laptops and phones all over the world, I think is so powerful, because we are still unused to seeing people like you on our screens. And so, I think those sorts of messages must be really validating.
It makes me feel like, gosh, if I were a kid, Reeta, and I saw a person like me on TV, and I promise I'm not saying this with any guile or arrogance, it would have made my life. I would have felt so seen, and I'm positive you felt this way also.
Absolutely, yeah.
You were a child of the 80s. Maybe I'm.
Yeah,
90s.
I am indeed. Yeah.
There weren't people like us on TV. I felt so alone. I felt like such a freak, and to know that kids can see a version of themselves on TV that kind of looks like them, that must be validating to some extent.
I think it's hugely validating, because I think that it's very hard to imagine if you haven't had it, what that must feel like. Yeah. But I certainly felt for most of my childhood, my teens, even my 20s, and even into my 30s actually, until I started to meet other people like me and see other people like me and start the work at Gaysians, etc. That there were other people like me, and it is really, really crucial. So thank you for everything that you do.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
And I just want to ask, just wrapping up now, a couple of questions, because I love that you're a business person, and I'm interested in what we're in this really interesting time with with the way the brands are operating, businesses are operating in the world in terms of being inclusive, right, and representative. In terms of not just their campaigns, but the people behind those campaigns, the people within the organizations. And I want to know from you as a business person, how do you feel brands can be more inclusive moving forward?
Sure. I don't know what it's like in the UK. Again, I haven't lived there for a long time, but here I do like that there has been a push in the major corporate world. So major conglomerates have started to actively participate in prides across America. So New York Pride, LA Pride, whatever. And I know that a lot of the queer community says, well, we don't like that these big corporate companies are taking our pride, and I have a differing opinion on that. Yes, don't get me wrong, I don't want it to be performative. I don't want it to be just that one thing a year, but I do love seeing these major corporations supporting pride and supporting championing our equality. But what can they do better? They can make it year round. They can make their policies at work a lot more inclusive. Discrimination, much greater punishments for discrimination in the workplace. And so I think that's where the follow through throughout the year is something that I think every organization, every small business to the major conglomerates, they need to work on. That is what happens for acts of discrimination. What is the consequence, and how do we make sure it's clear from day one when somebody starts within an organization that this kind of behavior will not be tolerated, and that everybody, regardless of gender, sexuality, whatever, are equal.
Excellent. And so,
actually, can I mention one other point, which I really appreciated is, I know everybody hates paid endorsements on social media. However, my heart has been warmed by the amount of corporations that have me as the face of their brand. Now in the US, I just think that is a big risk to not go for a straight white guy or a straight white woman and use a gay Muslim brown immigrant as the face of your company. That is a risk. And I do love that some companies understand that yes, they may lose out on a very, very right-wing audience who doesn't want to see somebody like me as the face of their brand, but they're willing to put that out there to say that this is what we represent. I truly appreciate that.
Yeah, that's really powerful as well, isn't it? When it's not just about being a queer moment or a queer brand or a queer campaign or pride campaign, or an Asian market that's being targeted. It's actually you as the face of a brand because of everything that you are and you represent as a human being. He's wonderful, beautiful, and has a lot to offer. Yeah, as that face, right? Yeah. And that should be the norm. And I hope that's where we're going. Yeah. And just to wrap up, couple more questions. Now, in terms of the Fab Five, you've obviously changed so many people's lives and just brought so much happiness into people's homes. Is there a moment for you that particularly stands out?
from the show, a moment from the show, outside of the show.
It can be outside the show.
I'm going to give you two.
Yeah.
One from the show. There was an episode where we helped a wonderful woman that we call Mama Tammy. It was in the town of Gay, very small town. I think it was a population of less than 1,000 people. And that moment, that episode will stay with me for the rest of my life. That the woman, Mama Tammy, will stay with me for the rest of my life. It was just so impactful. We weren't just helping one person learn to understand and love her son, who was queer, gay, but we helped a whole community embrace who this person is and to help encourage them to see him as equal to all of them. And that is still the case. We speak to Mama Tammy regularly. Things have really changed in that small town, and they love Miles. And so that was the moment from within the show. Outside the show, it is just the people who will stop me on the street or message me or send my assistant emails to say how much it has affected their daily life. I had somebody at my gym. Gyms are open in America, in our state, because we got many cases of COVID. And somebody stopped me in the gym literally a couple of days ago and made me a little bit emotional. And he talked to me about how our show had changed his life last year. He was a straight guy, and he would never have watched a queer show, and he watched Queer Eye with a friend. It was on at somebody's house, and he went home and he's watched every season. He knew everything I had done on the show, and he was like, "You changed my life completely. I always knew I was queer. I didn't feel like I could express that side of myself." And he said, "My life is completely changed, and I will never forget you." And it was such a beautiful moment that made me think, it's not just a TV show. It's not just some clothes I'm putting somebody in. I'm actually able to make people feel like they are perfect, just the way they are. Yes, I may put them in new clothes. That's so not what our show's about. It's about using those clothes to be able to say, look at yourself, be the best version of you. I feel incredibly privileged to be on this show.
It's so much more than that, as you say, and I think the impact it has on people's lives is not something that you could just explain or predict. If you tried explaining it to somebody, you have to watch, you have to immerse yourself in it to really get that from it. And so I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for this. And we have 1 minute. I just want to ask you, what's next for you?
What's next for me? I'm doing a project in the UK. It's my first project in the UK. For the BBC. I can't say what it is just yet, but it is something I'm so proud of. And I hope that our community, the Asian community, is going to be really proud of what I'm doing in the UK, because it's to champion who we are and show that we're the same as everybody else in the UK, and that we're just as wonderful a community as every other community. So I'm really excited about it. So yeah, I'll be coming back to the UK this year. That's the thing I'm excited about.
Awesome. Well, we're all very excited to have you back, and we look forward to that project as well. It sounds wicked. I really want to know more about that. And thank you so much, Tan. It's been an absolute joy to speak with you.
Thank you so much. You are a darling. I appreciate the questions. You're very, very considered questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Happy Pride, everyone.
Happy Pride, everyone.